A 5-gallon aquarium is a great size to start with, or if you're somebody that's adding another tank to your collection, but you don't have a lot of space. We thought it would be fun to put together a list of our top 10 ideas for a 5-gallon aquarium so that we can set you on the right path. We'll be covering our recommended ways to filter, heat, light, and decorate a 5-gallon aquarium, and of course we'll get into our favorite fish to put into it too. Let's kick things off with what kind of 5-gallon tank you should buy. Five-gallon aquariums are a really popular size because they're small enough to put on things like bookcases or even on your desk, but they still have enough room in them to do some really cool little aquascapes. But a common question is, what kind of tank should I buy? Should I get one of those starter kits or just buy the tank and choose all of my own accessories? The answer to this is, it's totally up to you and what you plan on doing with it. What I mean is, if you plan to put a betta or shrimp in the tank, you might not want the kind of filter that the kit comes with because it'll blow the fish or shrimp around, or with shrimp being so tiny, it's very easy for them to sneak their way into the filtration, which can be a total disaster. These kits are super easy because they come with everything that you need to set it up, and you don't have to question whether you're buying the right size equipment or not. But there's other easy ways of doing it too, and we're going to cover all of those in this video.
If you know me, you know we were not going to get through this video without me talking about bettas. These little fish have completely taken over my world, and I just can't get enough of them. One of the reasons why I love them so much is you don't need a huge tank for them. In fact, in every video I've ever done about bettas, I've said you should keep them in a minimum of a 5-gallon tank. Okay, I know this is going to sound weird, but hear me out. Bettas are known for having amazing personalities. They recognize you and dance all over the place every time you walk up to the tank. If you set up a nice 5-gallon tank on your desk, you'll never be lonely and you'll always have a little buddy there keeping you company while you work.
So you've decided that you want to piece all of these things together. You don't want to go with one of those starter kits. Now this is a really good decision because you're going to have complete control over everything that goes into your aquarium. The first thing that you have to make a decision on is filtration. With 5-gallon tanks being so small, they're not the easiest to filter, but you have a couple of really good options. The first would be sponge filters. These are easy to use filters with no moving parts, and they're super easy to maintain. The downside to them is you have to buy an air pump to run them, and some people don't like the fact that they take up valuable space in the aquarium, and well, they're not the most attractive thing in the world. Now don't get me wrong, I love sponge filters. But another option would be this little guy right here. This is the Micron from Seche. The Micron is an internal power filter that tucks into the corner nicely. It looks good, and it does a great job filtering small tanks like 5 gallons. You might be thinking that a power filter is going to be so much more expensive than a sponge filter. Well, if you're talking about the actual filter itself, yes. But when you consider the fact that for a sponge filter you also have to buy the air pump, when you put those two things together, it pretty much washes out. So it's kind of a no-brainer. If you're somebody that loves sponge filters, go with that. If you're not a fan of sponge filters, this is a great alternative. Whichever filter you choose, they'll both do a great job of filtering the water and keeping things clean and healthy without blowing delicate fish like guppies or bettas around. And that's the most important part.
Unless you've been living under a rock, you know that there's little teeny tiny shrimp that are perfect for small aquariums. These little shrimp are a blast to keep because they're all over the place. They come in a bunch of different types and colors, and most of them will breed like crazy, even in a 5-gallon aquarium. I definitely wouldn't call shrimp good for beginners because some of them require pretty strict water parameters, but once you have a good understanding of the science behind keeping an aquarium, you should definitely give them a try. If you are a beginner and you're thinking about keeping shrimp for the very first time, then maybe you should look into cherry shrimp or even a mono shrimp. I've had the best success with a mono shrimp. Both the cherries and the amanos will be much more forgiving of water parameters, so they're a great way for you to enter the shrimp world. The cherries are bright red, while the amanos will be more clear and get way bigger than the cherries. Just remember, these guys will breed like rabbits if you keep your water right, so make sure you're prepared for that.
If you're someone that's setting up your first aquarium, you might be already asking the question, do I absolutely have to have a heater in my aquarium? Well, in my opinion, I'm going to tell you almost 100% of the time the answer is going to be yes. Most of the fish we keep in aquariums are tropical fish, so they want their water to be a little on the warmer side. Heating an aquarium that's so small can be a pretty scary thing because with there being so little water, it would be easy to warm it up too much and end up boiling your fish. This is why I like to use smaller preset heaters in really small tanks. These are heaters that have built-in thermostats that'll only allow the water to get to a certain temperature before they cut off. We've been using these small Jolly heaters from CJ. These are perfect because they're small, they're made of thermal plastic rather than that thin glass that can explode on you, and they're preset to keep the temperature of the water right around 78 degrees, which is absolutely perfect for most of the fish that you're going to want to keep in a 5-gallon aquarium. Whichever brand you choose, these little preset heaters are fantastic because they're basically, you just plug them in, put them in the water, and you're done. You don't have to set anything or anything like that. It's an absolute no-brainer. We actually sell these on our website. If you want to pick one up, I'll put a link in the description.
A little earlier I talked about bettas in a 5-gallon tank. One of the things that bettas love more than anything is plants. Plants give the bettas something to keep them occupied by swimming through them, but they also provide nice hiding spots for your fish if it gets spooked for any reason. And this doesn't just apply to bettas. Almost all nanofish love having plants in the aquarium, so this is a win-win. Your tank looks amazing with the plants in it, and it also keeps it healthy. The only issue is some plants end up getting pretty huge, so there wouldn't be enough room for them in such a small tank. It's for this reason we recommend you stay with smaller plants like Anubias nanoPetite attached to rocks or driftwood, some micro swords to act as a carpeting plant, and maybe some moss balls just to break things up a bit. Nothing looks more natural than a planted aquarium, and it takes this hobby to a whole new level, not just for you, but also for the fish.
Lighting a 5-gallon aquarium can either be super easy or really difficult, depending on what you plan on doing with the tank. What I mean is, with it being such a small tank, you could literally get away with lighting it with a desk lamp, but there's also the threat of putting way too much lighting in there. Imagine being in a really small room and having a couple of huge stadium lights right over top of your head. It's shining on you all day, and you can't get away from it. You'd go mental pretty fast. I know the tendency is to make the tank as bright as possible, but this isn't always the best thing to do, which is why, in a perfect world, all of our lights would have a dimmer on them. Unfortunately, that's a feature reserved for only the super high-end lights. I'm talking about lights that for a 5-gallon tank would cost like $200 or $300. So what do? Well, this is why I'm a big fan of lights like these that are designed specifically for nano aquariums. They're not overly expensive, and they do a great job lighting up the tank without being way too overpowered. If you do have a light and you think it's way too overpowered, just think about giving the fish somewhere to go so that they can get away from that. Something like a cave or maybe a big plant leaf or something like that, so that they can go into the shade. Just think about it. You can stand under a tree in the shade pretty much all day long. But how long can you stand in the direct sun before you start to melt down? On a really hot summer day, it doesn't take long. Guppies are without a doubt the most popular fish for a 5-gallon aquarium. Well, except for bettas, I guess. Gotta keep mama happy. Guppies are not only a super attractive fish, but they're also really easy to keep, and they stay small enough for a 5-gallon tank. The cool thing about guppies is that you can not only keep them in a 5-gallon tank, you can also breed them in there, which actually happens pretty easily, so watch out. A lot of stores will sell guppy males and females separately because of how rapidly they breed. Obviously, if you go to the store and you only buy males or only buy females, you won't have that problem. But in my opinion, you should put the boys and girls together and just watch what they do. Just let nature happen. It takes things to another level and it's a lot of fun. And it's the coolest thing ever to go to feed your guppy tank and you're like, hey, wait a minute, there's a teeny tiny fish in there. Trust me when I tell you, the first time this happens, it's gonna change everything about this hobby for you.
What about decorating a 5-gallon aquarium? What options do you have for such a small tank? Well, you might be surprised to hear it, but you've got tons of options from small pieces of Malaysian driftwood, small stones and plants, and cool little things like floating moss balls and moss-covered bridges from Aquarium Co-op. Plus, of course, you have fun little things like mushroom houses, SpongeBob characters, and tons of fake plants if you're not into all the work involved with the live plants. On the topic of fake plants, there's all kinds of things available out there, like little betta hammocks, fake plants that suction cup to the glass, and even things like rock ledges that suction cup to the back, making your background look 3D. When it comes to decorating your 5-gallon aquarium, you're only limited by your imagination. Just make sure you research the fish that you plan on keeping. There's nothing worse than having this great idea, spending a bunch of money and time getting it, and placing it in your tank only to find out it's going to be a detriment to your fish. You don't want to make that mistake, believe me. I speak from experience.
Okay, let's close this list of ideas for a 5-gallon aquarium out with another fish that you can put in there, and this one's perfect. It's EMBER TETRAS. No, I'm not doing this because they have the same name as the best Breaking Benjamin album ever. Although, if you haven't heard the song Feed the Wolf, go listen to it. It'll change your life. Anyway, EMBER TETRAS are a fish that a lot of times get overlooked because you've got options like cardinals, neons, bettas, and guppies. But these little fish can keep up with any of those I just listed, not only in their ease of care, but they're just as good looking as any of the others. EMBER TETRAS are teeny tiny and super easy to keep and breed, making them perfect for not only a 5-gallon aquarium, but also for a new fish keeper's 5-gallon aquarium. Look, everyone that sets up a 5-gallon aquarium is gonna get either guppies, bettas, or shrimp. Take a stand, be a rebel, do things different, get you some EMBER TETRAS, and just step away from the crowd. Oh, and while you're doing that, put the album EMBER from Breaking Benjamin on in the background. Feed the Wolf, Red Cold River, Tourniquet, and Psycho. Oh, hey, Benjamin Burnley. By any chance, do you have a fish tank?